Do you have the paperwork for transferring NFA items from an existing trust to an LPP trust foundation? I have an existing trust that has a corporation name on it. Thank you. So, Jason, are you saying that the trust that you have is the name of a corporation, or is the trust the ownership of the corporation? And you're asking about the operating agreement inside of the trust and have the ability to transfer the assets within the trust to our foundations? The answer is yes. There are some elements that you'd have to do from an operating agreement. You can either copy an operating agreement from an old one to the new one. But I'm hoping I'm answering your question properly. If I am, great. Awesome. Okay. So yeah, we have when we answer, when we help people with the foundation structures, number one, I always tell people this is kind of how the IRS works, and it's a pretty unique thing. They like to go fishing. They're like an old guy in Alaska. They just love to go fishing, and they know they don't have jurisdiction, so they don't use a real name. They just throw out these letters every now and then, one in 100 foundations, and it's something to the degree that you've lost your tax exempt status, and please submit, so that we can get you approved as tax exempt. And then they also use the same names, like the words private foundation. And so people say, I looked in the IRS code, a private foundation has to file a tax return. I'm like, no. If you look deeper into the code, you'll find out that when they're referencing a private foundation, they're actually referencing an S corp that turned into a 501c3 that is now a private foundation. The difference of a private foundation and a regular 501c3 is one is more directed for family purposes, one is more directed for public, church related, large industry related purposes. And so when the IRS, and this is it's not a funny thing, but they're trying to trick people into the jurisdiction of getting your tax returns filed for your private foundations that we're creating. It's a lie. And we can show you in the code. The bottom line is anything that is unregistered. And here's another thing, Jason. Everybody wants to say, okay, I found it. It's 508c1a. I'm unregistered. I fall under that exemption. I'm like, no, you don't fall under that exemption. I mean, I literally have people trying to get letters from the IRS. I'm like, what are you doing? Why are you taking this private entity and trying to get approval from the IRS? That's like taking what belongs to God before the devil's throne and begging for permission to operate. What are you doing? And it's not to condemn people. It's just that's how sold they are on the power of the IRS. And what they actually did was just did a form of registration and a form of submission. Even like a half bow to a Chinese king or to a foreign king is a bow and received. Whether it's full bow, half bow, your submission is required. And they will start pulling on that submission to make sure you bend further every single time. And so when you take a look at how the IRS operates, and just knowing that an unregistered private trust is powerful, but an unregistered private church or foundation is a level 5 out of 5 Kevlar, because it's something that belongs to God. And you're the fiduciary, and it's unregistered, and they can't touch it with a 10-foot pole. Biblically speaking, legally speaking, lawfully speaking, there is no way to pull these things into a court case or to get jurisdiction over these things. And so there's people that I'm sure have made attempts, and there's people that I'm sure that are trying to get attorneys to take up the representation of these types of entities, but they won't. I've seen it. And so when you're starting to understand public and private, and I'm teaching you the secret sauce, there's levels of protection that you will never get by requesting permission from the IRS to operate as a 508c1a. Secondly, even though the 508c1a is an exemption. There's companies out there that say, become a 508c1a. No. We don't become anything that is a code under the IRS because it's a form of bowing to the IRS. We don't care. So what I say to people is, if you're going to call me anything under the IRS code, even though we don't and are not required to say that's us, we're probably closest to a 508c1a. We're just unregistered, we're private. Go ahead and set up a business account, regular, we'll pay the $12 a month, or we'll leave $2,000 in the account to avoid the $12 a month. And we don't have any problem with it. And so we get the business accounts established. If you haven't gotten rid of your Social Security yet, the Social Security is going to go on a private site over here on the profile, not on the account. So if you were to go in and type your social in, they would not be able to find this account. And nor would they be able to jump on that account if you had any tax issues personally, because I know for a fact, because I lived it, before I got into running his advocates. I had some tax issues, and I swore after I found out what I found out, I would never pay another dime, and that what turned into some ugly things, and that turned into some liens which are no longer there. They're gone. But nevertheless, they could not touch one of several ministry accounts that I've had and that I've operated. And so I just want you to remember, and this is a long-winded answer, but I just want you to remember that we are not anything that they offer code-wise or tax-wise, just like a state citizen is not an American national or a national of the United States, or state national, either one of those four things. Those are all coined phrases. Four of them are coined phrases. Two of them are coded under 8 U.S.C. 1101, 821, and 22. And the reason why I'm saying that is because they're traps to bring you under the jurisdiction. And there's the word national is synonymous with a U.S. citizen in law. And so every time somebody's out there toting becoming an American national, it's just one of those misrepresentations that the United States has made to make people think it's like being a state citizen, and it's not. And then here you have all these people, millions of people making an allegiance. I'm a American state national. There's no such thing in law, in Supreme Court, in case law, in code. American state national does not exist. State national does not exist. American national does not exist. It's national or national of the United States. So whenever your phrase that you're creating, state national, American national, the focused word is national because that's the final noun of your description. And so you're actually saying I'm an 8 U.S.C. 1101, 821, which means I'm equivalent to a United States citizen. Go look that up. And I've had shows on this. I've had a lot of people come over to the state of the union citizen side. And I always say, like, you take a look at some of these docs that are out there, and they're American national docs, but you take a look at the bottom of the docs, and they quote state citizenship cases, just like that doc I just showed you. So why are we claiming on the actual affidavit to being a state national or American national or national of the United States if it is for a state of the union citizen? Why are we making allegiance to words that don't exist in that case law? You understand what I mean? That's what they do. And so I just want to help you guys to understand that, yeah, we have to make sure that we're not using their trademarks, their words. And if you do in a doc, you better identify it, because you can use the word state, you can use the word national. And if you identify that document properly, you're creating the document how you want. So you can maybe put an asterisk next to American national if you really want to be called that. And I would never want to be called that. And down on the bottom, put asterisk equals state of the union citizen, American national equals state of the union citizen. But why? Why don't you just call yourself a state of the union citizen? Just, that's so much easier.